Welcome to Performance Dynamics, the podcast where we dive deep into the intricate factors that drive success in sports and business. Join your hosts, Gareth Ewing and Joe Mountford, as we explore the mental strengths, mindset skills, and psychological dynamics that can elevate performance. Welcome to our fourth episode of our podcast on performance. In this episode, we continue with the topic of post-performance blues, a phenomenon commonly experienced by athletes, fans, and communities after the thrill of the Olympic Games or a big performance fades away. Join us as we discuss the techniques that you could find useful following major competitions. We touch on the importance of finding a new purpose and share effective tips for managing the transition as you reset for future training or reframe your goals. Tune in for more valuable insights and heartfelt conversations that resonate beyond the podium.
Joe, nice to see you again is it podcast episode 4 already?
Yes, thank you, Gareth. So nice to chat to you again.
Yeah, thanks. And today we're gonna follow on from our last episode, which was around that kind of post-performance slump, and now talking about the transition period. What are you doing if you are either resetting yourself and getting ready for the next round of competition and preparation in your performance career? Or what are you doing if you are leaving it all behind and you are transitioning into a new line of work, a new line of performance, or even the dreaded R word, retirement? And it's going to be, I think, an interesting conversation. It's really about tools, and it's really about the tools you already have inside you. And it's about being deliberate about using them. The tools that served you as an athlete, as a performer, are the tools that are going to serve you in this transition state as well. Joe, do you want to kick us off with kind of number one on that list, the thing that you think is really the most important?
So the number one that we've come up with is reestablishing a daily routine, because as we spoke about in the previous podcast, was the structure and the schedules that you have in preparing for a big event. And your life is running on a timetable, being dictated to by, and I don't mean dictated to in a negative way, but it's being communicated to you through everybody that's around you in a support team. So the number one thing in your resetting, if you're going back into the activity that you were involved in, would be about establishing a routine. What do you think about that, Gareth?
No, for sure. And I think, you live in those routines as an athlete. The things you do every day consistently, they may not be massive things, but it's your waking routines, it's your going to bed routines, it's your morning rituals, it's the time of day that you like to go to exercise. These things are what anchor you in your performance, and they create that predictability. They create that safety. This way I see it, is the safety of your routine. And the quicker, once you've had your rest, once you've gone and eaten badly and had a few drinks or socialized or do whatever it is that you like to do to let off steam that kind of feels completely alien to that performance lifestyle, is once you've got that out of your system, return to the performance lifestyle. And from there, build on it. If you are then going to be going back into tournament mode, back into preparation mode, your body's going to remember that stuff. It's familiar, and it helps you to get back into your routines as quickly as possible. If you're going to be moving away completely, you don't want to take a break from routine. Yeah. You can shift certain routines. Maybe you're not waking up so early in the morning. Maybe it's a different kind of routine in terms of waking up to go to a job or to go to your new career, but it's still got to be consistent every day. It's still got to be deliberate daily action.
Yeah, because that's what your body and mind understand. So to go from structure to just chaos, your mind will head in the same direction, wouldn't you say? Especially if you have a tendency towards depression, it's vital that there's a level of structure and routine, because that provides you with a sense of predictability and some level of certainty that you can create. And again, it might take more effort than if you were in part of a team before, or a swimming program, or a diving program, or whatever it is. It's just vital that there's some level of structure. And it might be that you need to be accountable to somebody. It might be like with my athletes, I ask them to send me their goals for the week. It just makes them accountable. And if that's what you need to keep you in a structure, that you have someone like Gareth and I that you can just on a Monday morning say, this is my plan. And it doesn't matter what, it's not a plan to be judged. It's just a plan. I do think that would be helpful for you.
Yeah, I agree. And we're not talking about big things here. We're talking about what are the simple, small things that you do every single day. And they may be things that don't even apply to other people, but I guarantee that most successful people around the world have daily routines and rituals that they follow most days. Maybe they have their odd day of lying in the morning on a Sunday, but every other day they are doing those things deliberately. And it's important for us to remember those. And again, I want to just remind you what we spoke about earlier. These are tools that you already have. These are not new things. You just need somebody to help you remember them.
Yeah, that's it. And there's that word again, mindfulness. It's just checking in. I know I've done this and I do this, because one of the other tools that I was going to suggest a bit further down the line, but it's appropriate now, would be to keep a journal and a reflection and a feelings journal. And that again makes you accountable. It also, journaling for me, and Gareth, I know you'll agree with me, it's about, at the time you're writing it down and it might seem a bit mundane, but in 2 weeks' time, when you may be feeling a slump and think, oh, I'm still useless and I haven't done anything, you can reflect back and think, no, on that day I was, it really wasn't going well, but these are the things that I've achieved. These are the small accomplishments and small victories I've achieved along the way. So Gareth, the other tool that I really suggest is a helpful tool is journaling. Journaling for reflection, journaling for just getting your thoughts down, your feelings down. It develops accountability and self-awareness, and just helps with processing any experience. And from there, it helps us shift easier into goal setting. How has journaling helped you, and how does that help you with goal setting, emotional experiences, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And I think it's not, journaling is not for everybody, and it takes practice. You've got to really get yourself into it. And it could be that you leave yourself a voice note. It doesn't have to be something you write down, but the science shows that writing things down and saying things out loud have a greater impact on your neural processing than just keeping them inside. So just that action of being able to see your accomplishments on paper, to see what you did today, to see where you struggled, that can be really, really helpful. And as you were saying earlier offline, you can look back at it in 3 weeks' time or 3 years' time and go, hang on, I've been here before. This is what I did. This is what I noticed. That can be very, very powerful. Because again, we need that anchor. We need to remind ourselves that we are not just the athlete we used to be. We're not just the coach we used to be. We are now something more. We have always been that person. And these are the little things that we've always been doing in our lives that have moved us forward and helped us be successful. And holding that level of reflection and that level of accountability builds into the setting of new goals and the framing of new experiences.
And before you get into that, Gareth, if you were keeping a journal as an athlete, for example, and you reflected back, you would also be able to dip into skills that you translate those skills into maybe, okay, I was under this pressure scenario, or I had these relationship difficulties within the team, and these are the skills that I used in order to overcome them. So again, it's having those tools really available to you. I think for some people, the struggle that they have with journaling could be that somebody else can read it. But and that is a reality. I know that there's a journaling app where you need a password, and both that you can type out your journal or you can voice record, as you said. So if there is the fear of somebody else reading it, there is that option. So let's talk about, first of all, setting new goals if you reset it, and setting new goals if you're transitioning. How would you go about that process? Yeah.
I think the reset one is what's important. Is nothing seems as big as a World Cup or an Olympic event. And yet, if you look at, I used this example to you when we were preparing earlier, most of the track and field athletes were performing on the last night of the Olympics, and they were in a Diamond League event a week later. It's life and routine for them. We spoke about in our previous podcast, it's a job. It's their daily work. So that reset has to be quick for players or athletes in different sports where, there's less of a routine. There's more of these pinnacle events that kind of define their performance landscape. Being able to say, what did I learn from that event, and what am I taking it into the next event? That becomes really important in terms of your reset. But there's also that debriefing process, which is so important. And I know how I used to pay a lot of attention to, we will draw a line under this event. We will talk about what we did right, what we did wrong, what we can celebrate. And then we will also talk about what are we going to do next? How long are we going to have where we can bugger around, for want of a better way of putting it, before we're now going to say, right, now we're back to business. And that can happen whether you're in a team sport or whether somebody else is doing it for you. Draw your line. Know that is your finishing line for that event. This is your play time after that event. And this is the day when we're going to get back to work. It's a little bit of a holiday, but it's making sure, like we spoke about daily routines. How do you start your day? How do you end your day? How do you start your event? How do you end your event? How do you start the process for the next event? It's exactly the same process. It's understanding that everything has a beginning, everything has an end, and what do you take from the one into the other in terms of learning? I think that's really important for us, for anybody who's got to pick themselves up and start training again, to remember that you are now more than you were before the last event. Now you can take that into your next event. If you're that person who's stepping away completely and who's moving in a completely different direction, what are the new things that you are aiming for? Is it greater connection with family? Is it performing in a different job space? What are the things that you're going to aim for in terms of goal setting in that space? And I think that's really important as well, because goals can shift. A physical goal is, of all the goals, this is my opinion, which doesn't count for everything, is the easiest thing to aim for. I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to run a 10K. I'm going to prepare myself to be physically fit enough to compete. What if your goal is now an office-based goal? It's, I'm going to learn these new skills to take into work. And that can be, I think, quite hard for the athlete to realize that now you're suiting up every day and you're going into a different space where your skills are going to be used differently. And that's a whole different conversation. But it's still understanding, okay, here's my gap. My gap is finished. This is what I'm aiming for now. And being clear about what you're aiming for.
And Gareth, in the Gazing Red to Blue, there's goal setting that you do for performance. And I do it long term. So if there's a big event coming up, if say it's in 3 months' time, they've got to set 3 months goal, and included in that is physical, technical, mindset, and physical, or whatever it is. And they've got to break those up so they've all become very intentional and accountable, and they can measure them. And then they need to set weekly goals so that, again, it's not something that's over there, it's right here. They've got to do it every day. And then we've got a checklist to check. Often it's for post-performance, like how am I performing? Am I doing it? Am I going the easiest route, or am I doing what I really need to do? Again, it's just accountability. It's checking and it's keeping you on task. And like you brought in like the office job, that's not necessarily their natural rhythm. And it to keep confidence up and to keep motivated, to just check in and be realistic. I'm doing okay. I've learned more than I did last week, and I'm getting closer to the goal that I want to achieve. It's just a really good way. And often people can't do that on their own. So they might need the support of like you and I, just to keep them re-looking, rerouting, motivated, checking in that they're doing okay. And maybe it's not for them. Maybe that's something else. They need to re-look at something else.
Yeah, and I think back to last episode as well, where we were saying that people don't equate performance in different spaces, and we push ourselves too hard. So because you are at this pinnacle, it doesn't mean that the next thing is going to automatically be a new pinnacle. It's a new journey. It's a whole new process, and that being consistent, doing things that are difficult because they will get easier the more you do them. Those are normal life things. They are not just performance things. And it's reminding ourselves of that, and reminding ourselves that we excelled in one space and we were quite spiky in that space because we were very, very good at one specific thing. All right. Is that it will take us a while to find out what else we're good at, because we actually haven't allowed those thoughts to enter our brains, because we've been focused so much on a specific kind of performance. Is to understand that you can excel in different spaces, and that excelling is relative.
And Gareth, that's going to lead into what I'm going to talk about. Another skill to develop is to engage in different activities. And when I talk to people, I say that your life is like a pie, and different people and different activities contribute to that pie. But being an elite athlete, that pie hasn't got many slices. Do you agree? It's just pretty much full on that thing. And when I had the privilege to talk to Erin yesterday, she spoke about bringing in new activities and new hobbies that she just hadn't had time to do, and also that you wouldn't do at risk of getting injured. Like you would never go and do CrossFit at the risk of being injured. I remember Hannah Pierce saying she couldn't ski in the December holidays at risk of doing a hamstring or getting injured, that you wouldn't be selectable for the Olympics. So it's not seeing retirement as, or if it is retirement that you're going into, but it's a time that you can just kind of shake your shoulders a bit and do things that you have had to sacrifice in order to reach your pinnacle. I think that's crucial, that hobbies are also a big thing. And hobbies don't mean performance things. It could be crafts. It could be something gentle. It could be developing yoga. It could be developing mindful techniques that one actually should have learned during the performance phase, like breathing and meditation. But it's just adding another tool to make that pie a little bit more balanced.
And it's not just exercise. Hobbies are not just exercise. They're not just movement based. I think that's important. That there are so many different ways to stimulate your brain, and to keep that in mind. That said, variety of exercise and the novelty of doing something new can actually help your body recover. So if you are resetting and you're taking time off, yes, perhaps skiing is not the safest thing to do, but other sports, other different activities, trail running instead of running on the road, a little bit of CrossFit if you're conditioned enough to cope with it, whatever it might be. It's just a different movement set. And if you're in that retirement phase, when you're moving away, now is your chance to actually go and experience other sports with the freedom of knowing that it's okay if you're not very good at it, and it's okay. You're not worried about getting injured because it's not going to keep you out of the next competition. These things are very valuable in terms of your brain and rewiring your brain, and remembering that elite level sports often come with very specific movement sets that are not actually helpful in terms of longevity and in terms of overall health. And to now be able to embrace that is a great opportunity, and it's something to actually look forward to.
Yeah. And I think that's vital, is that the body can have, those muscles can have a chance to rest a little bit and activate some others. And on that, like seeking professional support in all areas. So it might be that you're wanting to take up a different sport and then having the humility to say, I actually don't know how to do that. I could do this, but I don't know how to do that, but I'd really like to learn it. And having the courage to ask a psychologist for help if you're feeling depressed, or you're feeling hopeless, or you just can't see the way forward. And it's okay. It's so okay, because again, it's tools that you will gain. Approaching someone like Gareth and I, because with the Clifton Strengths, what it does is it allows you to see where you're going to be strong, yet confident and comfortable in areas. So if you are seeking work in retirement, you can go into an interview with confidence, say, these are the things that I think I'd be confident to do, and I can bring in my professional career these tools. What would you say, Gareth?
I love that.
Professional help is vital.
I love that, Joe, and it's also, it helps you with purpose. It's that sometimes friends and relatives are just too close, and you need someone who's a little bit distant but who is still invested in your success, and helping you to remember that you achieved stuff that ordinary people, for want of a better word, didn't get to achieve. And how did you achieve those things? You did it with routine, you did it with ritual, you did it with discipline, you did it by seeking professional input and help and advice, you did it by consistency. It wasn't just talent that got you there. It was all of that consistent ability to analyze video, ability to reflect on performance, the ability to look at numbers and data, stuff that will serve you in a new workspace. It's just a question of reframe it for yourself.
The ability to manage pressure, the ability to communicate effectively under pressure, the ability to work with others, even if you don't like them, in the best interest of a team, a company, or whatever. Those skills are invaluable, and they are learnt in a pressure cooker situation. Would you agree?
Yeah, and the ability, the willingness to show vulnerability.
Yeah.
That you don't know exactly everything how to do things, that you need to train, that it doesn't come naturally to you, that you need other people. These are such important things that all athletes have learned over the years, that they lose sight of because they actually come naturally to you. When I work in corporate spaces and I go into corporate teams, you can tell the people who have been in sport. You can tell the people who train, who've been in a team environment. They just get different dynamics. They understand that everybody's different. They understand how people fit in. They understand how to make teams successful. These are valuable assets to take into a workspace.
Yeah, cooperation, all of that, totally. And another suggestion would be, if you're unsure, or even if you are sure where you want to go, or if you're in that phase of resetting, volunteering or mentoring would be a wonderful thing to do, both to give back, and you'll find it incredibly rewarding. So it could be mentoring young athletes, it could be doing talks at schools or wherever, and just maybe volunteering with youngsters, coaching, a little bit of coaching here and there. That would be hugely rewarding as a something to do.
Yeah, I think, and also just interning not committing to something straight away. If you're very lucky, you've got that professional transition ready to go, preloaded. For not everybody is that the case, and then it's taking your time, being kind to yourself, experimenting. The best coaches you ever had probably invited you to experiment with skills out on the field, to find out what worked best for you. This is another skill that you already have that you can take into this space.
Love it. Okay, and then the last two that we can end off on, and we've mentioned it before, is obviously staying physically active. Don't let that go. And then self-care. And I think self-care is such an important part, because I think because of all the discipline and the sacrifices and everything that athletes have to go through, they often think that overindulging in bad foods is like a gift. Yet it isn't. It's more about self-destruction. And so when we talk about self-care, we talk about nutrition, we talk about exercise, we talk about meditation, we talk about massages, it's spending time with loved ones, reestablishing friendships that may have been neglected along the way because you just don't have time, and you can't go to weddings, and you can't go to all the important events that were on the go. It's about reestablishing all those things and being mindful and present while doing it, so that you can enjoy the new norm.
Yeah, it's reconnecting with the stuff that you've allowed not to let slip, but you've put to one side because you've had to make those sacrifices. Now it's actually having the opportunity to live a more full life, a more rounded human experience, and it's actually something to look forward to and something to get excited about. Will you have nostalgia for what you had before? Yes, you will. But you also won't remember all the early mornings and the late nights and the things you had to put to one side. And it's a really good opportunity.
Yeah. And I think when you're ready to retire, like you had a conversation with someone recently and you asked them, I think you said to them, did you wish you were at the Olympics?
Yeah. I asked a friend, I said, are you missing it? And his response was, no, I'm not. He said, it was a season in my life. I got all that I could out of it, and I've moved on to something that I'm really enjoying and I'm focusing on now. And I don't miss something that I don't feel a loss or a lack for not being there. I'm happy where I am now, and I'm looking forward to progressing in the space I'm in now. So that's the opportunity to tell yourself that kind of story, versus I wish I could have done this, I wish I could have done that. What's helpful for you, what serves you.
And I think we can end there where you said earlier on, everything has a beginning and an ending. And I think, and what it sounds like, he had complete acceptance that when he retired, that was a chapter he was closing and another door was opening. And that's lovely. So thank you, Gareth. Thank you for the chat. And I think this has been an invaluable chat. And if anybody would like to make suggestions, send questions, or share experiences, we would really value that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Gareth.
And, Joe, thanks for the chat as always, and look forward to further engagements.
Thank you, Gareth. Take care. Bye.
Please be advised that this podcast discusses topics related to mental well-being, personal experiences, and societal issues. The views and opinions expressed by the host and the guests are personal and may not reflect the views of everyone in the community. While we aim to inspire and support, please remember that individual experiences with mental health and sports can vary significantly. If you or someone you know is facing challenges related to mental health or requires support, we strongly encourage seeking professional help. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we hope you find motivation and encouragement in our conversations.